The paradox of the pattern. There is an inherent paradox within Patternism. We have defined patterns as discernible regularity, but this concept of discernible regularity is itself an oxymoron. It is paradoxical. How can anything be both discernible and regular at the same time? How can any instance of a pattern be both unique and repetitive? All cats are the same and all cats are different. All smartphones are the same and all smartphones are different. All human beings are the same and all human beings are different. Each of these statements is both arguably true and self-contradictory. Is Patternism inconsistent then? The answer is yes. But the trade-off for such inconsistency is completeness. Patternism is a theory that seeks to explain all biological phenomena, even if it means sacrificing consistency within the framework. Although there are valid concerns about maintaining a strictly consistent theory, the paradox within the first principle of Patternism reflects the nature of reality and what can be built from it. This inconsistency, known as the paradox of the pattern, is found and utilized throughout nature. All living organisms make use of the paradox of the pattern to an immense degree, for it is only through the paradox of the pattern that the phenomena of reproduction, eating, and repairing can occur. Consider a form of the paradox of the pattern in the ancient Ship of Theseus paradox. A ship belonging to the Greek hero Theseus is kept in a harbor as a museum piece. Every year a plank of wood from the ship rots and is replaced by a new one. After 1,000 years all the ship's planks have been replaced, raising the question, is this the same Ship of Theseus? The paradox continues. All the original planks that were removed from the ship are gathered and rebuilt in precisely the same arrangement. Now there are two ships, and the question is then asked, which of the two is the Ship of Theseus? Is it the ship whose planks were gradually replaced, or is it the ship rebuilt with the original planks that were stripped away? There are multiple proposed solutions to this paradox from different philosophical viewpoints. For a Patternist, the question of which ship is the Ship of Theseus centers on patterns, specifically on representations and the criteria for naming something the Ship of Theseus. For a Patternist, the Ship of Theseus is a pattern defined by a set of features. If an entity meets enough of these features to a certain threshold, the entity can be called the Ship of Theseus. However, this Patternist approach brings its own complexity. Who decides which features define the pattern of the Ship of Theseus, and what threshold must be met? Is it the universe by natural selection that decides? An authoritative figure like the museum director? A group consensus among visitors to the ship? A sailor who can operate it? Is it Theseus himself, making any ship he commandeers the Ship of Theseus? Or does the Ship of Theseus, the one Theseus sailed across the Aegean Sea in his adventure so long ago, no longer exists, much like a man is no longer the child he once was? For a Patternist, the proposed solutions to the Ship of Theseus paradox are inherently inconsistent. It can be argued from the fundamental principles of Patternism that both ships are the Ship of Theseus. Neither ship is. One ship is the Ship of Theseus, and the other is not. But is this not true? Is it not true that the solutions are inherently inconsistent? The question of the Ship of Theseus can be asked about many different phenomena. It can be asked about George Washington. Is George Washington the skeleton in the tomb at Mount Vernon? Is he the painting hanging in the Oval Office? A wax figure in a museum? The letters he wrote now stored in a library bearing his name? An actor in a movie? Or is he gone forever? And if so, why do we label all these things as George Washington? Who decides, and to what degree can an entity be called George Washington? Even more astounding is that the Ship of Theseus paradox applies to DNA. When DNA replicates, half of the DNA strand is stripped from the other half, and a new complementary strand is built for each half using free-floating nucleotides. After one replication, we ask, which of the two set of DNA strands is the original? Is it the leading strand or the lagging strand? Is it both? Or neither? What about after millions of replications, as occurs over the lifespan of a multicellular organism? What about mutations? And if we consider replication across generations with differences accumulating over billions of generations, what can we say about the DNA of a living descendant compared to its ancestor from 100 million years ago? Which is the original DNA? Again, through the paradox of the pattern. All nucleotide molecules are the same, and all nucleotide molecules are different. All DNA are the same, and all DNA are different. All living organisms are the same, and all living organisms are different. The paradox of the pattern is universal. Finding a precise answer to the Ship of Theseus paradox is not the point. For more than 2,000 years since the paradox was first introduced, philosophers have been blind to only focus their attention on trying to find a definitive answer to whether the two ships are the same, which, even if an answer is provided, ultimately changes nothing. For a Patternist, the most critical aspect of the Ship of Theseus paradox is in the phenomena of reproduction, eating, and repairing that the paradox demonstrates. In the Ship of Theseus paradox, a reproduction of the ship occurs. From one ship, a duplicate is made with all the functions and features of the original ship. But why stop there? Using the same method, we can take each ship, replace each plank, and use the old planks to build another set of ships, resulting in 4 ships of Theseus. And why stop there? We can take each of the 4 ships, replace each plank, and rebuild to create 8 ships of Theseus, then 16 ships, 32, 64, 128. An entire fleet of ships of Theseus can be built using this method. What the Ship of Theseus truly illustrates is the beginning of reproduction. For more than 2,000 years, philosophers have overlooked this critical aspect of the Ship of Theseus paradox, even though the same process is repeatedly observed in nature. It is what occurs when an egg is fertilized by sperm, and the resulting zygote divides from a single cell to many. It is what occurs in mitosis, within all multicellular organisms as they grow and age. It is what occurs in manufacturing, on assembly lines and through the standardization of component parts, resulting in the mass production of cars, airplanes, and computers. The second aspect that the Ship of Theseus paradox demonstrates is the phenomenon of eating. In the paradox, an old ship is technically broken down into its individual components, its planks and nails, which are then used to build a new ship. This process can be generalized further. Since planks and nails are component parts of many objects, the new ship does not have to be built from the old ship's parts. A ship of Theseus can be built from planks and nails taken from several smaller ships, from a wagon, from a house, from anything made up of wooden planks. Again, the crucial aspect of the paradox is that this mirrors what occurs in nature. When an organism eats another organism, when a predator consumes prey, the predator breaks down the prey into its component parts, into a mush of nutrients that the predator uses to draw energy and rebuild itself. All organisms eat. All organisms engage in the process of gathering nutrients from the environment to rebuild and eventually reproduce themselves. Philosophers eat, scientists eat. Musicians, kings, presidents, and cognitive scientists eat. All human beings eat. We eat plants. We eat animals. And, in desperate times, we eat each other. The phenomenon of eating is seen everywhere in nature, and yet it has been largely ignored. At the core of the Ship of Theseus paradox is a practical question about the phenomenon of repair. In the paradox, the original Ship of Theseus, stored in the museum harbor, decays and becomes damaged over time, requiring annual repair and maintenance. This raises the question, what does it mean for an entity to be repaired? For a Patternist, an entity is repaired when its original features are restored to their initial values. In the paradox, an old plank of wood in the ship no longer retains its original features, such as hardness or elasticity, so the old plank is replaced by a newly cut and cured plank. Again, there are nuances regarding who gets to decide what those features are. A sailor might prioritize the ship's ability to sail without sinking, while the museum director might consider the ship repaired only when it matches the descriptions left by the previous director. Even the ship itself, if it were conscious and had a representation of itself to compare to, can decide when repairs have been made. The act of repairing is not limited to the Ship of Theseus. It occurs throughout nature and can be seen in phenomena like eating, as well as in all manufactured products. When a car breaks down, we take it to a mechanic for repairs. The mechanic might replace the engine or tires, restoring the car's key feature, its ability to drive. The same principle applies to computers, tools, and other machines. The question posed in the Ship of Theseus paradox extends to any repaired object. Is a repaired car the same as it was before? Is a laptop still the same after most of its parts have been replaced and upgraded? Is a remodeled house still the same house? Is a man the same person he was as a child, even though every cell in his body has been replaced many times over as he ages? The phenomena of reproduction, eating, and repairing all depend on patterns and the paradox of the pattern. The Ship of Theseus paradox requires that planks of wood be consistent regularities within the environment. All planks must be similar enough to be interchangeable, yet different enough that replacing an old plank with a new one has meaning. For eating to occur, the predator and prey must share compatible biochemistry, allowing the predator to break down and absorb nutrients from its prey. In organ transplantation, organs like hearts, kidneys, lungs, and livers must also exhibit regularity across the population. One heart can replace another, provided the essential features match and the heart is not rejected by the recipient. Again, all ships of Theseus are the same and all ships of Theseus are different. All cars are the same and all cars are different. All kidneys are the same and all kidneys are different. The paradox of the pattern is inescapable. Why have philosophers failed to notice the phenomena of reproduction, eating, and repairing embedded within the Ship of Theseus paradox? Why has no one recognized that these phenomena are deeply connected, share an underlying principle of patterns, and can be extended to explain phenomena beyond the biological substrate, serving as clues to a theory of intelligence? As of the writing of this book, why is there no theory that seeks to generalize and account for these essential and immensely practical phenomena? Phenomena that every human being and every organism has encountered and engaged in daily since life first emerged over 4 billion years ago? It is inexcusable and a massive failure by philosophers and scientists to be blind to such fundamental phenomena. It is a failure driven by the human-centric view of intelligence, which causes philosophers and scientists to focus exclusively on human-associated phenomena, abstraction, representation, language, naming, and identity, while neglecting the essential processes that all organisms participate in. The human-centric view of intelligence is not only wrong, but is an impediment to finding a complete theory of intelligence. A Patternist will make no such mistake. We will start from the very bottom and climb our way up. Reproduction, eating, and repairing form the foundational rungs of the ladder of complexity to which consciousness will be reached. Any theory that seeks to explain intelligence, evolution, or technological innovation must first account for the fundamental phenomena of reproduction, eating, and repairing. Any theory that fails to do so, that cannot address these essential and highly practical phenomena, is ultimately a waste of time. We have shown that at the core of the phenomena of reproduction, eating, and repairing lies the paradox of the pattern. But the paradox of the pattern covers so much more. All paradoxes and inconsistencies found in nature can be traced back to patterns, and the paradox of the pattern, the paradox of self-referencing, the problem of how a species is defined, the question of how a representation can be both the same as and distinct from the entity it represents, the question of why children resemble their parents but are also different, the shifting boundaries of language and definitions and their manipulations for propaganda, perception and illusions, the spontaneous generation of cancer cells and multicellular organisms, history as both the recording of new events and a repetition of the past, debates over morality, the human tendency to form tribes, wage war, commit acts of ethnic cleansing and genocide, even in politics between those who strive to uphold traditions that have sustained society and those who aim to reform and improve the system. All can trace their roots back to the paradox of the pattern. All is one. One is all. One is one. One is nothing. And all is nothing. Each of these statements can be argued as true when taken to the logical extremes within Patternism. Consequently, Patternism is inconsistent. But this inconsistency within Patternism reflects the inconsistencies found in nature. Is it not true that we can trace our ancestry to a single-celled organism, that our atoms originated in the cores of stars? Is it not true that everything and everyone, even the sun itself, will eventually change and disappear? Is it not true that each of us is unique, that we can only perceive reality through our own eyes? And is it not true that at times, what we consider ourself, our actions and thoughts, seems beyond our control, almost an illusion, that the reality we experience in dreams is not real, for things to be different and yet the same, for things to be the same and yet different, all cats are the same and all cats are different, all human beings are the same and all human beings are different, all patterns are the same and all patterns are different. A solution to the paradox of the pattern will not be answered or offered here. For a Patternist, patterns and the paradox of the pattern are inherent properties of the universe. As it stands, the paradox of the pattern will remain the fundamental mystery within the heart of Patternism.